Hello folks, this is Sula once again. Welcome to another video for Teamfight Tactics. In this video, we're going to be doing a look back and reflecting on set 4 of Teamfight Tactics. This should be right before set 4.5 comes out. Technically, it's still, I guess, part of set 4, but there's going to be so many changes that it's basically a new set for all intents and purposes. And what I want to do is look back and reflect on set 4 and think about some of the things that went really well in this patch, some things that could still be improved on. This is generally going to be a positive video since I have good impressions overall of set 4. There's also a written version of this same general sentiments that I put up on my website, so I'll go ahead and link that in the description to the video if you want to read a kind of a longer, more written version of this article. This is taken from a normal game of Teamfight Tactics here in the final patch of set 4, 11.1. And, we've got some pretty good people in this game, and there's actually 2 Masters players in this game. I'm not going to comment as much on what's taking place in the game itself. Just do what I've done in the past with some videos. Use this as background footage as I go ahead and walk through and talk a little bit about set 4 in general. So let's get to that, shall we? Now, necessarily talking about set 4 is going to involve a number of comparisons to set 3 Galaxies, which was not a set that I liked very much in terms of Teamfight Tactics. I did not have positive impressions of set 3. I tried to play that set. I really had a good experience with set 2 of Teamfight Tactics. That one was a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time playing set 2, Rise of the Elements. Ended up playing a lot of matches with that one, but set 3 didn't really ever quite catch on with me. I played it for maybe a month or so and then eventually just got too tired with it. There are a lot of different problems that I had with that set, and I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I do want to go through a few of them just by way of making the comparison to what I thought was better here in set 4. So a number of different problems. Kind of the first one that I would immediately mention were problems with the visuals in set 3. Now, the theme, of course, for set 3 was this kind of futuristic science fiction-y theme, looking to be in space, all that jazz. The problem with that, though, was all the champion designs kind of ended up looking very similar. You kind of ended up with everyone looked like person with a futuristic sword or person with a futuristic gun of some kind, and all the champions ended up looking pretty similar overall. So that has a couple of different issues to it. Number one, the first problem is it's very difficult to distinguish the champions from one another. And yes, I'm sure you can overcome this if you spend a ton of time playing the game. Obviously, eventually you'll memorize what all the little champions look like, but it is problematic when it's difficult to distinguish them apart. A lot of visuals that looked very similar. In the written article, I used the example of the cybernetic champs, where literally the 6 cybernetic champs all had some kind of visor on. So it was like 6 different people in a futuristic visor with the visor pointed in slightly different directions. Just not from like a visual design standpoint, just not very clear. Something that I think was kind of, yes, I understand why from a thematic perspective they were in a position to do that, but it just not something that was easy to follow. So number one, the champions looked very similar. And then number two, the champions didn't really look like their League of Legends counterparts. And that kind of is a problem. Like, this is a game that uses the League characters as basically like the chess pieces in a chess auto battler. And if they don't look like themselves, that's kind of a problem, right? I use the example of it didn't look, if you had the Jarvan, for example, didn't look anything like Jarvan. If you had the Jace, it didn't look anything like Jace. And that was the case for most of the champions. They just didn't look like their League of Legends counterparts. And again, it makes it tougher to learn the game. It can make it tougher when you're rolling very quickly and trying to you've got 10 seconds and you're trying to roll through 20 gold or whatever, and you're just going very quickly. If the champions don't look like themselves, it's harder to pick up on those quick visual cues. So I think that really did have an effect on the game. Like I said, eventually, if you play the game enough, you'll memorize all this and get used to it. But should players really have to fight the interface? I don't know. I don't think that was great. Just by way of comparison, the visuals here in set 4 are a lot clearer. The champions are easier to distinguish. They are mostly either using their default skin. So for example, just right here, you can see on the interface, Zed has Zed's default skin. It's easy to spot Zed. Or they tend to use kind of a like an East Asian type themes that are designed to look like a Japanese cherry blossom festival, that kind of thing. So the overall aesthetic is much brighter. They use like a lot of soft colors as compared to what they were doing in set three. And it's just easier in general to distinguish what the champions are. Like right now on the screen, there's a picture of Teemo. Now that's not Teemo's default. It's not Teemo's default skin, but like it's pretty clear that it's Teemo. It doesn't look like any other champion, and that's the case for a lot of these other ones as well. Just a lot better visual clarity, easier to distinguish which champion is which, a lot less confusion in that regard. And I do think that that ultimately matters because it affects how much you enjoy the gameplay. So a lot less case of fighting against the interface in that regard. Still, that said, you can overcome issues with interface. As I said, if you're enjoying the gameplay, you can kind of like overlook this. I've certainly played strategy games where like the user interface was garbage, and it was just the rest of the gameplay was fun enough that I could overlook that and keep playing. But as far as how set 3 went, ultimately it was the rest of the gameplay that was problematic. And so let's look then at some of the other issues. I want to talk a fair bit about the galaxy mechanic. That was kind of the big thing in set 3. It was the name of the whole set. And the whole point was you would have these different galaxies that you would play through. And for various reasons, they didn't really work for me. I know some people like the galaxy, so I don't want to like complain about them too much. But overall, it wasn't something that I ended up liking very much. And I think the big problem was the lack of any choice in terms of what happened with the galaxies. Generally speaking, with the galaxies, you were kind of thrown into these alternate rule sets and you didn't really get any choice as far as what the rules would be. And oftentimes you could just kind of be thrown into a game that wasn't really particularly fun to play, if that makes sense. Each galaxy, of course, the idea was players will be given different rules and they'll have to decide kind of how to play the game from there. Like they'll have to adjust on the fly. But a lot of the galaxies really weren't that much fun, honestly. And oftentimes it kind of felt like you were being forced into playing a variant against your will. I'm big on variants. If you know my stuff, I enjoy doing variant stuff in single player, but kind of crucially, the whole thing with the variant is you kind of get the choice to pick the variant. You aren't kind of forced into playing a variant against your will. And oftentimes it felt like that was happening with a lot of the galaxies. They would change up the gameplay, but they didn't really make the gameplay more fun, and they didn't really do a whole lot to make the game better, for lack of a different word. I'll run through some examples. Different things would include some of the galaxies that were around, at least when I started out. I know they added more later in set 3, but they would have things like the Medium Legends Galaxy, where everyone gets extra health, which was pretty stupid. Like, who said that they wanted a slower paced game that takes longer to play? Kind of silly. I don't really know why they did that. You had things like the Galaxy where it was all 4-cost champions on the initial carousel, which again sounds neat. It's like, oh, hey, let's make it to the first carousel as 4-cost champs. But that didn't really make the game better. In fact, it generally turned into just who can grab the best champion on that initial carousel. If you could grab the Aurelia or grab like the Jin or something, then you're like, congratulations, you're gonna top 4 this game. But if you got like the Wukong, yeah, guess what? Well, you just lose. Have fun with that. You didn't click fast enough in the first 3 seconds of the game. So things that sounded neat but didn't really play out very well at all. And if anything, just took more choices away as far as how the galaxies worked. So as set 3 went on, I think the designers kind of realized that this wasn't working in the way that they wanted it to. And what they ultimately did was they kind of moved away from galaxies that actually changed the rules of the game and kind of shifted them into galaxies that just gave the players more stuff. Like the galaxies that were still around at the end of set 3s included things like the reroll galaxy, which was popular because you got to reroll for free once each turn. The galaxy that gave, well, I can't remember the exact name, but the galaxy that gave everyone just 10,000 items, like that was also popular. The galaxy that gave everyone a free force of nature, the galaxy that gave everyone a free spatula, etc. But like these weren't really changing the gameplay so much as just giving the player lots of free stuff. So like ultimately they kind of moved away from changing the game rules and just shifted it over to, hey, let's give out lots and lots and lots of goodies to the players. And I think that that was kind of a recognition that the whole notion of changing up the gameplay didn't really work that well. Like one of the galaxies initially that they tried out, and scrapped pretty quickly was the galaxy where like you couldn't move, like 2 of the 4 rows were inaccessible and you couldn't move your champions between those rows. So like I think that was one of the ones they ditched pretty quickly because it just wasn't fun to play. And all the galaxies just were very external to the gameplay. I'm not sure if that necessarily makes sense, but like they didn't really flow naturally from the gameplay that was taking place. They were kind of things that were added, like grafted onto the base gameplay, but like they didn't really, again, for lack of a better word, didn't really flow out of the gameplay. It was like something that was externally added onto the gameplay. And I think that that's why it didn't really work as well as maybe the designers were intending. They were things that were just like added on. And of course, the way that I'm contrasting this is to the Chosen mechanic, which is the big mechanic here in set 4, which just I think was a much, much better designed mechanic. So just to go through, again, some of the basic stuff that goes into the Chosen mechanic. If you're watching the video, you're probably familiar with this, but just to recap, everyone has the chance to get Chosen champions here in set 4. You can only ever have one Chosen champion at a time. The Chosens can appear in different varieties. They are going to be different basically every single game. They will roll one of the 2 traits for the champions. So like, for example, in this game, I've been playing through a Vanguard Garen. You can also get a Warlord Garen. And they provide a lot of extra power since not only do they come in the 2-star variety immediately, but they also have bonus stats as well. So they provide an awful bit of extra power. But crucially, and really what I think is the most important thing about the Chosen is you're never forced to play them. It's always optional. And I think that that's one of the key differences between the Chosen mechanic and the Galaxy mechanic. You're just kind of forced into the galaxies with like, I might not want to play the Galaxy where, I don't know, everyone's going to get a force of nature at level 5 or whatever. Like, I might not want to play that, but I don't really have a choice. I mean, it's just going to be randomly assigned to me at the beginning of the game, and I have no choice. I have to play that whether I want to or not. Whereas the Chosens, if you don't like the Chosen you never have to play it. You can just turn it down, and, I definitely have done that in plenty of games. You generally should look to play some kind of a Chosen, but even though it's random what's handed to you, well, that's pretty much how the whole rest of Teamfight Tactics works. You get random champions in the store, and then you choose if you want to play them or not. And as I said, the Chosen mechanic just flows very naturally out of that. You get options in the store, and you can choose to play them, or you can choose not to play them. So I really think that that just was a much better mechanic that tied naturally into how the gameplay worked in this game. Also, tons of replayability. You get different Chosens every game, so you're encouraged to play different team comps, not encouraged just to have one comp that you force every single game. Players still did that, of course. I mean, there's people who one-tricked certain comps into Challenger, like, because they're really good and, they completely master that. But generally speaking, I do think that you did better here in set 4 by being flexible, by playing what champions that you get, by being, reactive to which Chosens that you get. And I think that both encourage good gameplay, because that's what Teamfight Tactics really should be about, playing the champions that you get, being adaptive to what's popping up in the store. It also creates, as I said, more replayability. It's very different just getting a Vanguard Garen versus a Warlord Garen. Because I have a Vanguard Garen in this game, I have gone out of my way to grab more Vanguard champs. That's the only reason I'm playing a Wukong in this game. I've just found an early 2-star Wukong, and since I have the Vanguard Garen, I'm playing through that with 4 Vanguard. Otherwise, I would never have this Wukong in this comp. You saw I slapped the blue buff on him because he was the best one who could use that. But normally, I would never run Wukong in this Warlord / sharpshooter setup I'm running. But I can use it here because I've got the Vanguard Garen Chosen, and that's what this is all about. Is you build different team comps each game because you get different Chosens, and then you build flexible team comps out of them. It's really fun, and like I said, it creates replayability. Now, similarly here, I saw that there was a Jhin on the carousel, and I just decided I will grab the Jhin because I just want to play Jhin, and he's such a strong champion. So I am going to look to do that, and even though he's not a perfect fit for this setup, I want to go into Jhin eventually, and I'm going to adapt and grab him off the carousel. So overall, like I said, I just think the Chosen mechanic is significantly better than what we saw in the previous set, and there you see me getting the Garen into the team composition. I had been running the Locket on the Vayne. The Vayne was not really the person I wanted holding the Locket, but she had had that chain vest off the previous carousel, so she was the one to hold it. But I decide, let's drop the Vayne. We'll ditch Dusk, but we'll get the locket onto Garen, who as a 2-star unit is a better user of the locket. And that'll also allow us to get this Jhin in, who is going to just do a lot of damage, even as a 1-star unit without proper items. He's still going to do an awful lot of damage, just because he's Jhin and he's the top sharpshooter in set 4, at least until Samira comes out in set 4.5. All right, so that was a little bit about the chosen mechanic. Now, there were other things that I thought were problematic about set 3 that I want to mention. And by the way, now we're going to put Vayne back in for Dusk, just because I'm going to push levels because I'm on a 6-match winning streak. There were other things about set 3 that I thought were really problematic, and a lot of these were underlying economic problems under the hood. So this is going to go back in time, but back in set 2, there were a lot of these mechanics that I thought were working really well in terms of things like player damage, in terms of the amount of money that you got for holding on to win streaks, in terms of things of that nature. But in set 3, the designers decided for no clear reason that they wanted to shuffle all this up. They made big changes to player damage. They took away most of the damage that was the flat damage that you get per round, and they moved it all into the flat damage. In set 2, if you narrowly lost, you didn't take much damage, but if you got crushed, you took a lot of damage. At least at the beginning of set 3, they completely changed that up, shifted most of the damage to just what round it was, and made it so even if you got like absolutely smashed in a round, it wasn't much different than if you narrowly lost. That was a huge mistake. It was really stupid. It meant that you didn't have to play strong boards throughout the game. It encouraged people to not at all care about the early game. And it just wasn't really fun for me in particular, because I always tend to really always feel like you should be trying to be strong throughout the game. And there were all these people who just lost streak throughout the early game at the beginning of set 2, and it was really frustrating for me. So didn't really work out the way I wanted. Also, by the way, here, me not getting the items I want, this is also kind of frustrating. So I'm going to have to try to make something out of these defensive items, even though I'm trying to play through Jhin. So I'll have to try and figure something out here. Anyway, though, you get the idea. Real problems to the economy changes. Also, big changes to win streaking at the beginning of set 3. They made it so win streaks were it was very easy to go on a win streak or on a loss streak, and like there was a ton of gold tied into the streaks. So you pretty much had to be either win streaking or loss streaking. And because there was so little damage in the early game, basically there was too little damage in the early game and too much damage in the late game. Because of that, you saw people just loss streaking, very frequently just loss streaking through the beginning of set 3. And the game was really not in a healthy state, because early game didn't matter, mid game barely mattered, late game was all that mattered. And you would have people just playing super duper greedy and, like greeding for perfect items, greeding for long loss streaks. And if you weren't win streaking or loss streaking, it was like you just didn't have enough money to play the game. So it was very frustrating. It just didn't feel like the game's economy was in good shape at all. And then there were also really big problems with balance. Now, anytime a new set comes out, there's going to be problems with balance. I'm sure set 0.5 is going to be a disaster for the first couple of weeks, because they're going to be introducing all new champions, all new traits, blah, blah, blah. But beginning of set 3 was really rough, really quite rough. There were a lot of champs that were very poorly balanced, traits that didn't work. Classic example was early Gangplank could just kill the entire board when you give him a 2-star Gangplank and give him a jeweled gauntlet, and he would just kill the entire board at the start of when he used his ult. Yeah, not a lot of counterplay there when could just one-shot the entire board. So not a lot of fun. But there was other stuff too. Later on you'd have team comps where they ultimately overbuffed a lot of the one-cost units, and we had things like the Candyland comp. For those who might remember Candyland, it was based on 3-starring Poppy and having like 3-star Twisted Fate and 3-star Zoe, and like these comps were just not well balanced at all, and really made the game not especially fun to play. So very, very problematic setups, to say the least. So between the fact that I didn't like the way that the economy had been changed in set 3, and I didn't like the way that win-loss streaks were handled, and I didn't like the way that these really unfun team comps were quite common, just a whole bunch of problems. And between all the other issues, I just did not enjoy playing set 3 and ultimately didn't end up playing it after the very early stages of the set. So set 4 largely reverted most of those economic changes under the hoods. In fact, most of them were kind of slowly reverted over the course of set 3, and the game is just in much better shape. Like I said, from that economic standpoint, you no longer have the win streaks being so important. I mean, win streaks are still great to have, but you now have to get up to 5 matches before you get the full benefit. At the beginning of set 3, you only had to be on a 3-match win streak or loss streak to get the full economic benefit. So the streaks are more have been sorted out. Player damage has been largely sorted out as well. Player damage is back to being in a pretty healthy place. And you're also in a situation where the overall just balance of the game is quite good here. Again, this is the end of the set, so it's a little bit unfair to compare end of set 4 to the beginning of set 3, but it does feel like there's a lot of different viable setups in this particular patch right here. Like, you can play a lot of different stuff and have it be viable in this set. Like, there's not one team composition that dominates. All right, so I do want to narrate what's going on here. So I just went to 8, and I'm going to roll at 8 because I want to move out of my early game stuff. So I end up finding a Vanguard Aatrox, and I kind of amusingly moved from the Vanguard Garen into the Vanguard Aatrox. I was like, all right, well, I'll just move all those items along, and then I need to find something else, so I find the Yone, and then I was like, well, I guess I'll sit here for the moment. But I still do want to roll a little bit more. I want to make my comp stronger, and I feel like I still need to get a little bit stronger. Either I want to 2-star the Jin, I want to get rid of that Wukong because I don't really want to be playing 2-star Wukong. I think I can find a better user for that blue buff. Like, that blue would be much better if I could put it on the Yone. But I don't want to go straight to 9 here. I want to get a little bit stronger. And I think in general, these kind of trade-offs work really well here in set 4. There's a lot of tension between, do I need to roll to get stronger, or do I look to level and push economy? Here in set 4, it's more expensive than ever to level to 9. It actually costs 80 experience to get to level 9, which is a ton. Like, that is not cheap at all. 80 experience. Very expensive. So at this point, I'm again still trying to look to shuffle around. What can I do to make my team comp stronger? I'm still playing the Warlord, which I think is something I can look to ditch in the near future. I still got the Nidalee in there, who probably should be subbed out. But I need something stronger to put in if I'm going to play her. Like, you don't want to make yourself too much weaker. So let's get full value out of that Locket. Let's continue trying to get these units in play. So what have I got here? I have an extra Vanguard. Probably don't need 3 Vanguards in the team composition right now. But I do want to run Thresh for that Dusk at the moment. Still, we can probably get stronger here. And as I said, these kind of decisions I just think were handled really well in set 4. There's a lot of different comps that you can play. This is going to be a comp that plays through Jhin, but there's many different carry units that you can play, whether that's a reroll Moonlight composition, whether that's moving into like Warwick or Ashe, or whether that's just moving in and playing legendary units later on. It's a whole bunch of different things that the player can look to play through, and a lot of different options here, and a lot of different trade-offs too as far as what to play. Like which traits to run. I think the traits are very well designed. So like here you see me drop the Nidalee in order to get up to 4 Dusk. Is 4 Dusk ideal here? I'm not sure, but I wanted to move out of Warlord because Warlord wasn't really doing anything. Still, I think it's great having traits that you can splash into the team comps. Like, for example, Dusk you can splash in with like 2 people running it, or you can dive deeper into the trait with like 4 Dusk or 6 Dusk. You can run like Mystic with 2 champs or Mystic with 4 champs. You can run 2 sharpshooters or go up to 4 sharpshooters. Like, there's just a lot of different options here. Now, as far as what I'm doing right now, I'm going to roll a little bit more because I think I can get stronger here. If you look at my board, look how many 1-cost units I have right now. I've got almost entirely 1-cost units, and I decided that I'm better off dropping the 4 Dusk here, that it's better off to go down to 2 Dusk, but in order to play more legendary units, I also have to consider if I can get the Kayn into this team comp, which I would also like to do, but I need to see if there's any units that I can drop here. I would really like to 2-star more of my board, and that's why you're seeing me look to level a bit more here as opposed to push up to level 9. I have almost entirely 1-star units. I think it's important to try to 2-star them. By the way, the GA comes in super handy here because Veigar would kill my Jhin, but hey, GA comes back to life. And even having the 3-star Veigar is not enough for that person. And we actually knocked that player out in last place despite them making 3-star Veigar. Good stuff. It helps having the early Yone with the blue buff, to be sure. So there I find some more interesting stuff. I find the Lilia, and I have to consider if that's something I want to play. It gives me another option. I also find an Aatrox, and I decided I would just, hold on to the Aatrox in case maybe I'd have a slight chance of 3-starring the Aatrox. But then I find the Zillion, and that's really big as well because I want to get Zillion. He'll actually make Cultist as well as giving me Mystic. And so ultimately I decide I will just stay at 2 Dusk. I'm not going to go up to 4 Dusk. I'll stay at 2 for this game and get the Zillion in. So look how many traits I have in my comp right now. I've got the Emperor just from Azir, but then 3 Cultists, 2 Adept, 2 Mystic, 2 Sharpshooter, 2 Keeper, 2 Vanguard, 2 Dusk, 1 Ninja, 1 Exile. Not bad, right? Pretty good stuff. So, like, what exactly is this? Is this really like any team comp? I'm not sure that it is, but that's also one of the things I really like about set 4. There is much less in the way of like, I am playing this set team comp, it always runs these units, and like I always have these 7 units in my comp. It's much more about playing strong units, and that was one of the big kind of mental leaps that I think that I made here in this set, that it's not about team comps. It's all about just trying to get very strong boards and play strong boards. And it's not about like, oh, I have this comp with these units, which was one of the mistakes I had, I think, earlier in previous sets. So here I've managed to 2-star the Riven. Now, if I can just 2-star the Jhin, I'll feel very comfortable to look to go to level 9. So that's my hope right now, is to get into a position where I can get up to level 9. But I'd like to be able to 2-star the Jhin. Now here I actually make a mistake. I forget that I'm playing Keeper, and then I move my units up to be on the front line, and then I was like, wait a minute, but I just lost the Keeper benefit because they're not standing next to Riven and not standing next to the Azir. I was like, oops, okay, well, that's kind of bad, but I'll have to fix that after this round. So anyway, we're getting closer to the end of this video. I think I've made most of the points that I wanted to make. Overall, just for me, the experience of playing set 4 was really rewarding. It definitely felt like there were a lot of different options to play through in each one of these games. The fact that the Chosens are different in every game really did feel like it added a ton of replayability to me. And it was just fun to play. So I'm hoping that set 4.5 will continue to have a lot of those same trade-offs. I'm glad that the Chosen are still going to be around. I'm a little skeptical of some of the champions they've introduced, which seem a little problematic from a balance standpoint, but hopefully with time they'll be able to sort it out. Here I actually get really lucky on the carousel. There's a Jhin with an Infinity Edge, so not only does this make 2-star Jhin, I also get an amazing third item. Infinity Edge is just an awesome item on Jhin because, of course, his 4th shot is guaranteed to crit. And what does the Infinity Edge do? Oh, it powers up your crits. So now I can go to level 9. Now I feel very comfortable to go to level 9. So again, just a good example of some of the trade-offs economically in this set. Like I had to really sit there and think, do I want to go to level 9 or do I want to roll a bit more at 8? And I think it was the right call to roll a bit more at 8 just because I had so many units that were only 1-star. But now that I have 2-starred the Riven and I've 2-starred the Jhin, Jhin is the really big one. Now that I've 2-starred that, I'm feeling pretty comfortable that I can go to level 9. I actually preserved my win streak the whole time that was going on as well, which is great because it means that if I can keep that going, I'm going to be getting 13 gold per round, and then it's only like 3 or 4 rounds to get up to level 9. But it is a decision, right? And if I wasn't in a strong position, then I need to roll more. And you really do have to think about that, as opposed to in some of the previous sets where it was just a little bit easier. Now here, the GA once again comes through. Jhin dies, but he's got the GA, and that's going to be enough to win that round, keep the win streak going, and just, we're going to keep on sailing. I'll also then have another decision to make, which is again a great part of why the Chosen mechanic is fantastic. Do I stick with the Aatrox, or do I sell the Aatrox and try to find a legendary Chosen at 9? Both of them are viable options, and you have to sit and think about that, which is again one of the reasons why I really love that Chosen mechanic. Is it better to stick with the Aatrox, who is a strong unit? He is, very tanky with he's got 3 tank items. He's got the Locket, the Gargoyle Stone Plate, and the Sunfire. Plus, because he's a Vanguard Chosen, he gets the extra Vanguard armor. So he is by far the tankiest champion on my team. But I also then have the chance, if I sell him, maybe I can find a legendary unit. And I do have an Aatrox sitting there on my bench, right? Like, I've got another Aatrox right there. So I can sub the Aatrox right back into my team comp. I already have a 2-star Aatrox on my bench, but I also then have the option of, hey, I'm only 3 Aatroxes away from making Aatrox 3-star, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And the decision I ultimately end up making in this game is I decide I'm going to try to go for the 3-star Aatrox. I don't know if it's the most ideal option possible, but I really would love to have a 3-star Aatrox. Never had a 3-star Aatrox before. I think that would be a lot of fun. And here, oh, Jhin Just barely not able to get that. Oh, can Vayne do it? Oh, Vayne. Nope. 200 health on the Diana. So that was super duper close, but I'm pretty confident that I'm outscaling that comp, and I think I'll be able to deal with that as the match goes on. I mean, my board can get way stronger than this. I still have 1-star Shen, 1-star Yone, 1-star Zillion, 1-star Azir, plus I'll be able to put in another unit at level 9, which right now would be Kayn just to that might not be ideal, but we'll see what we 2-star. Maybe we'll find something else. If we can 2-star a legendary unit, then we'll certainly play that. I also do like the fact that the legendary units are very strong in this current set without being like Gangplank kills the whole board unfair and unfairly strong. I think they're well designed in the sense that it's difficult to get them, but if you can 2-star them, they're very strong. So we're going to put that on Yone just so he ults instantly at the start of the fight. And oh my god, we've got 8 Aatroxes. Come on, last Aatrox. Come on, last Aatrox. I'm going to play Set for right now, and I'll play another Set. And the reason why I'm playing Set is I don't want to wait the extra rounds for Kayn to transform. But if I can find Kayn, I can certainly look to play him. I think in the end, though, I decided to sell Kayn because I just don't think there's enough rounds left in the game for me to have time for him to transform. And now I'm just really hoping that I can hit more of these units. I really want that last Aatrox. Come on, give me that last Aatrox game. I've got 8 Aatroxes. Give me the Aatrox. Well, anyway, here I'm going to lock for the 2-star Zillion, which will be another big increase to this comp. I actually think that this comp I'm hitting right now is the other strongest comp on the board. It's a Divine Warwick comp, and this is an example of another setup that's overall strong here in the set, but we actually do manage to defeat that thanks to the revive on Jhin. Thank goodness he's able to come back to life. Yeah, look at me highlighting the the 8 Aatroxes there. 3-star Aatrox pulls in 5 targets at once when he ults and does like 1,200 damage, I think is the number. So he's pretty ridiculous. I'm really hoping that I can find that here in this game. So yeah, I've got the Set in right now. Set is just there to provide a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more frontline. So we pick up the 2-star Zillion. Now we've got the 2 stars. We've got a pair of Azirs and we've got a pair of Sets. So hopefully I can hit one of them or hit the Yone. Like I said, my comp can get quite a bit stronger here. And now we're just in the finishing portions of the game. I guess I'll just spend a minute here briefly talking about kind of my experience here in Set 4. I think I did pretty well. I was able to play up to Platinum pretty quickly in terms of ranked. It only took 24 games. I think I probably could have made it further if I'd played more games. I felt like by the end of the set, specifically because there was a long period where there weren't a lot of major patch changes, I felt like I really had a good feel for the game by the end of it. I actually only needed 9 games to make it from gold to platinum, and I was 5th or better in all 9 of those games. So it's not like the players in gold were causing a lot of issues. Like I said, I'm 5th or better in every single game. I think is pretty good. So I do feel like I got a deeper understanding. By the way, there's another Vayne that's pretty funny. I do feel like I got a better understanding of the gameplay of teamfight tactics in this set. And the biggest thing for me was that notion of moving away from the whole notion of team comps of like, hey, in set 2, I played a lot of the Ocean Mage team comp. And I would also be like, oh, well, this unit it doesn't fit the comp, so I'm not going to play it. But like just moving away from that whole mindset and being more about, it's not about playing comps. It's about playing strong units, playing strong boards. Like, what is this? What is this team that I'm playing right now? Is this a comp? I mean, what is this? It's just like a gazillion, it's just like a lot of strong units, right? It's not like anyone would write this down. It's not necessarily a sharpshooter comp. It's not really a cultist comp. It's not a adept comp. It's just strong units. Like, play a strong board, and it's kind of destroying everybody else in this lobby. But like, that's the whole point. Is you just try to build a strong team, and it's better just to think about it from that perspective, not what is this comp anyway. So here we are, we're at the very tail end of the game. I was really hoping there'd be an Aatrox on this carousel. There wasn't an Aatrox in this carousel. Probably, in retrospect, should have taken the Azir, just because that would make Azir 2-star, just to get a 2-star version of that unit. That was probably the top choice here. But Shroud of Stillness, awesome in late game. So again, come on, give me that Aatrox. We just need one more. And by the way, now I've gotten all the Kayns. Could have had this 2-star Kayn. Oh well, you never know quite what's going to show up in the shop. So it doesn't look like we're going to get that. I'm actually like not even that sad if I lose some of these rounds, because I would really, really like to find that 3-star Aatrox. It's like, come on, can I find it? There's no one else is playing Aatrox, so that means there's still, what is it? There's 12 units that are 4-cost units in each pool, and I've got 8 of them, so there's still 4 Aatroxes in the pool. Now here I placed the Shroud to hit the Warwick, but I think that that may have actually been a mistake in retrospect. It delays how long Warwick goes off, but like one of the ways to beat this team composition is to have Warwick's Divine timeout, because like Divine only lasts for so long. But by having the Warwick slightly delayed in terms of when his Divine goes off, it actually does mean that he has that ability running for longer. And we actually knocked the Warwick down to like 10% health, but a Jin crit didn't quite finish him off. So we're gonna have to run at least one more round. So hey, 2-star Vayne, yay, 2-star Vayne, and we also managed to find a 2-star version of Azir. Excuse me. So I go ahead and lock it for this. Again, I don't want to sell I don't want to sell any of my Aatroxes. Note that there's also a Yone there, so I want to grab the Yone as well, assuming that this game continues. So we're going to continue positioning. This time I'm trying to hit the Ashe as opposed to hit the Warwick with the Shroud. But I believe the other player actually moves other player actually moves his Ashe out of the way. So I didn't end up getting a lot of value out of this Shroud. It hits the Shen and it hits the Aurelia, but look at Yone. Yone gets right onto Ashe and pops Ashe immediately. So that is really nice for us. And even though there's a fantastic Lux binding for the enemy team, it's not going to be enough. We actually win very easily, and so that's a first place with 60 health. So not especially that close. Just a well-played game from start to finish, and not against scrubs. As I said, there are two Masters players in this lobby, so not as though I was up against people who have no idea what they're doing. Well, anyway, as I said, this was a way of looking back at set 4, talking about some of the things that I liked, and in particular, contrasting it to set 3. So I hope that that was still entertaining to listen to with some footage in the background. As I said, there is a longer written version of this up on the website, which I will link in the description for this video. So once again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, see you guys soon. Take care.